Do you dare to dive into the depths of your own mind? This isn't just a horror video. It's a journey into the darkness we can't even admit to ourselves. William, Emily, and the others, they weren't ordinary people, and tonight won't be an ordinary night. Emily had moved to an old, abandoned village to escape city life and work on her new novel. The village was scarcely documented, barely appearing on maps at least. That's what the real estate agent had told her. She planned to stay for a few months, seeking solitude and inspiration. At first, everything seemed peaceful. The chirping birds, the gentle breeze, the tranquility of nature. But soon, strange occurrences unsettled her. The first sign was the village, well beside her cabin. One morning, she found its heavy cover mysteriously ajar, despite remembering clearly that she had shut it the night before. She started exploring the village, searching for any signs of life. The once thriving streets were now overtaken by nature, with collapsed roofs and wild overgrown gardens. The eerie sound of the wind rattling through shattered windows sounded almost like whispers. At the village entrance, she discovered an old cottage, possibly belonging to a former caretaker. Inside, dust-covered books lined the shelves, rusted kitchenware cluttered the counters, and in the corner, a decayed journal lay abandoned. Its pages, wrinkled from dampness, contained chilling scribbles. The whispers return at night. They have come back. The moment she read those words, an eerie stillness fell over the room. A sudden crack echoed through the ceiling as a wooden beam snapped, nearly crushing her. Heart pounding, she stumbled back. Just then, a shadowy figure appeared in the doorway. It remained motionless. Fear tightened its grip on her chest. When she blinked, the figure was gone, but muddy footprints trailed just outside the entrance, as if something had hesitated before stepping inside. Frightened, she rushed back to her cabin. She had come here to write, to clear her mind, but dark memories from her past resurfaced. Her younger brother's disappearance. As children, he had wandered into the woods despite their mother's warnings and was never seen again. For years, she had searched for answers but found none. Now, the novel she was writing mirrored that same tragedy. A young girl vanishing in a deserted town. But as she continued writing, eerie similarities between her fiction and real-life events became undeniable. The missing person cases from the journal were disturbingly similar to her plot. Had she unknowingly written about something that had already happened, or was she predicting what was yet to come? One night, she heard footsteps outside. At first, she dismissed them as her imagination, but the sounds were rhythmic, deliberate. Then, one evening, she distinctly heard slow, heavy steps circling her cabin. Gripping a flashlight, she cautiously peered outside. The night was empty. Determined to get answers, she sought out the only other known resident, an elderly man named Mr. Holloway. When he finally opened his door, his expression was grim. "Keep the lights on at night," he warned in a hushed tone. Confused, Emily pressed him for an explanation, but he simply closed the door. That night, she couldn't shake his words. As she lay in bed, lost in thought, faint rustling noises drifted through the silence. At first, they blended with the wind, but soon she recognized them deliberate movements. Rising cautiously, she grabbed her flashlight and approached the window. A lone figure stood by the well, unmoving, watching. A chill crept up her spine. As she reached to close the curtain, the figure slowly lifted its head, its eyes glowing red locked onto hers. Panic seized her. She darted outside, but by the time she reached the well, the figure had vanished. Yet again, the cover was pushed aside, and from within, she swore she heard a whisper, her own name. Terror-stricken, she bolted back inside, locking every door and window. Sleep was impossible. As dawn broke, she hurried back to Holloway's house, demanding answers. He hesitated before finally letting her in. His house was filled with old newspapers, faded photographs, and an open notebook on the table. He silently handed her an old newspaper clipping. The headline sent a chill down her spine. 5 children vanish without a trace. 1974. Beneath the article, scribbled in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Some stories don't belong to the writer. If you don't finish the tale, they will." When Emily examined the story of the missing children in the village, she realized that the events were identical to those in her novel. Mr. Holloway said, "The well is their grave, but at night, they return." Emily had found the exact place where the children in her novel had disappeared. Remembering Mr. Holloway's warning, she decided to leave the lights off, but the light drew the children's attention. The 5 missing children from her novel were exactly the same as the ones in the village. She had thought these events were just the product of her imagination, but what if they had already happened? Mr. Holloway said, "If you don't finish your novel, they can't finish either." Emily realized that the story of the missing children might be real. One night, a whisper came from the window, revealing a child standing by the well, their eyes completely black. Behind them, 4 other children stood. At that moment, she noticed the last page of her manuscript was writing itself. "Don't leave the lights on, or they'll take you too." Faced with this terrifying reality, Emily knew she had to write, for, on the last page, the children were drawn into the darkness, but one of them had to return. At that moment, Emily realized that sentences she hadn't written were being written for her. She quickly continued writing, but suddenly, there was something else in the room. A shadow of an adult figure appeared at the door. Emily realized she had brought back the wrong person. Now, she too would become one of the lost. The notebook continued to write itself. Emily is no longer writing the story. Emily lost control. Her entire body suddenly lifted into the air. The figures by the well began to move. Outside, the door opened on its own. And in that moment, Emily understood. She had to fall into that well. Her body began moving on its own. Her mind screamed, but her lips were sealed. Her steps fell into a rhythm she couldn't control. And at the doorframe, she saw Mr. Holloway. "You shouldn't leave the lights on at night," he had said. But Emily had always kept her lights on. Now, she was dissolving into the darkness. The last thing she saw was herself looking at him, and then everything went black. The next morning, Mr. Holloway returned to the cabin. He glanced at the notebook on the table. The last sentence was complete. "I moved into an old apartment because it was affordable. The first few weeks were fine, but one night, as I passed by the bathroom mirror, I noticed something strange. Instead of just my reflection, a shadowy figure appeared behind me for a split second. It vanished immediately, but I was frozen in place. I told myself it was just exhaustion and went to bed. But later that night, I heard a faint whisper coming from the mirror. Summoning my courage, I looked again. Inside the mirror, I was there, but different. My eyes were darker, my face slightly smiling, though I wasn't smiling at all. My reflection stepped forward, but I hadn't moved. Terrified, I covered the mirror with a cloth and avoided looking at it. Yet every morning, the cloth had shifted. It was as if something inside was trying to reach me. One day, I decided to remove the mirror completely. But when I turned it around, I found a note nailed to the wooden back. "Don't let it out." Chills ran down my spine. I hid the mirror in the darkest corner of my apartment. But no matter where I placed it, by morning, it was always back in the bathroom. I stopped sleeping. At night, I heard footsteps not from the apartment below, but from the bathroom. One night, I finally gathered my courage and lifted the cloth. My reflection was there, smiling. Then its eyes shifted upward. Something was behind me. Paralyzed, I held my breath and slowly turned around, but there was nothing. Yet when I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was gone. Instead, a shadowy figure stared at me from inside the glass. It raised a hand and pressed against the mirror's surface. A crack formed. It was trying to get out. Panicking, I tore the mirror from the wall and threw it outside. Just as I turned back, the door slammed shut. The lights went out. The only glow came from the mirror's cracked surfacer, faint, eerie blue light. The whispers were clearer now. A name? My name. A chill filled the room. My breath fogged in the freezing air. I took a step back, and so did my reflection. But this time, it was moving toward me. In a final act of desperation, I grabbed the mirror and hurled it off the balcony. The glass shattered on impact. For a moment, I thought it was over until a deep, echoing laughter filled the air. And then I realized the shadows were no longer just inside the mirror. They were everywhere. Frozen in fear, I clutched my blanket as dark figures loomed from the corners of my room. Each time I blinked, they crept closer. I reached for my phone, but the screen was black. The charger was plugged, and I was sure of it. I stumbled toward the light switch, but it was gone. Just an empty wall where it should have been. I had only one option left: escape. I ran for the door, but it wouldn't budge. Something unseen gripped my arm. A breath cold and unnatural brushed against my neck. I turned. My reflection was standing there, not in the mirror, in my room, dressed like me, looking like me, but with pitch black eyes. It tilted its head and smiled. Then it whispered, "It's time to switch places." Everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was in my room, but something was wrong. The walls were dull. My things were covered in dust. Then I saw someone was lying in my bed, my body. I turned to the mirror in horror. I was inside. The other me, whatever it was, sat up, stretched, and looked directly at me. It smirked and turned off the lights. Darkness swallowed me whole. I pounded on the glass, but no sound came out. Outside, I moved around, adjusting to my body, breathing deeply. This wasn't a nightmare. This was real. Time didn't move in here. The room outside looked different: faded curtains, discolored walls, a stopped clock. And I wasn't alone. In the darkness, something stirred. Shadows whispered. Their voices were low and unsettling, just beyond my comprehension. One of them stepped forward. Empty eye sockets stared into me as it spoke. "Thank you for bringing another one." Panic shot through me. I had been tricked. The thing in the mirror had used me to escape, and now I was trapped. The other me glanced at the mirror one last time. Then it turned and left the room. The door clicked shut. I screamed, but no one could hear me. I pressed my hands against the glass, desperate. There had to be a way out, but the mirror was solid. I was stuck. The shadows moved closer. The light inside the mirror dimmed. Outside, I was free, and soon it would find someone else. A knock at the door, then another, and another. From inside the mirror, I watched helplessly. The other me walked toward the door and slowly turned the handle. A young woman stepped in, eyes full of curiosity. "Hello, I'm here to see the landlord." The other me tilted its head and smiled. "Of course. But first, would you like to see the mirror?" The woman hesitated, then nodded. "I just moved in. I'd love to see." The cold dread filled me. I pounded against the glass, screaming in silence. The woman stepped closer. As she leaned in, the mirror's surface rippled. A shadow flickered behind her. She turned, but nothing was there, just her reflection, and the darkness creeping behind her. The lights went out. A chill spread from the mirror, and then a scream, but no one heard it. The door closed again, and I was alone, for now. William, overwhelmed by troubles in his work and personal life, wanted to escape for a few days. Seeking distance from the noise and chaos of the big city, he set off on a journey. He opened a map, picked a random location, and hit the road. His goal was to be alone for a while and clear his mind. As he drove through the night, he saw an old yet grand hotel by the roadside. The place was eerily quiet. Something inside him stirred, maybe a sign, maybe just coincidence. Either way, he decided to stay the night. The rusty sign read Blackwood Hotel. As William stepped inside, a musty scent, like old books, filled his nostrils. The lobby felt frozen in time. Massive wooden furniture, towering bookshelves, and faded Victorian-style chairs. The atmosphere carried a haunting stillness. Behind the reception desk stood an old man. His pale skin resembled parchment, and his eyes held a strange emptiness. A chill ran down William's spine. "One room, please," he said, his voice trembling. The old man slowly opened a ledger and, with a faint smile, asked, "Name?" William hesitated. A strange knot formed in his throat. It felt wrong to say his name here, but that was ridiculous. William S. The man nodded and handed him a rusty key. "Room 36. Have a pleasant night." As he took the key, his fingers trembled. The hotel was colder inside than out. Pulling his coat tighter, he headed for the stairs. Then, something caught his eye: a large antique mirror in the lobby's corner. He saw himself in the mirror, but something was wrong. His reflection had its back turned to him. A shiver ran down his spine. He turned his head, glancing over his shoulder. The corner was empty. He was alone. Shaking off the unease, he climbed the stairs. His footsteps echoed eerily in the empty corridor. Reaching room 36, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and old wood, merging with the heavy silence of the night. The room was even darker than the lobby. Only the faint glow of a street lamp filtered through the window. Exhaustion weighed on him, dulling his senses. He removed his coat and sat on the bed. The shadows in the room felt watchful. As he lay down and closed his eyes, a deep unease lingered. Sleep was restless. When dawn broke, William awoke, his thoughts muddled. He decided to leave, but stepping into the hallway, he noticed something odd. The old receptionist was gone. Someone else stood in his place. His mind buzzed with confusion. Something was wrong, but he couldn't pinpoint what. He hurried to the exit, grabbed the door handle, and pulled. It didn't budge. His breath quickened. He was sure he had unlocked it. Yet, the door was as if fused to the wall. Behind him, something moved. In the hallway mirror, his reflection stood, facing away. Then, it slowly turned toward him. Its eyes pitch black. Hollow voids stared straight into his soul. A crack splintered across the mirror. From its fractures, a thick, black liquid oozed. The reflection leaned forward, pressing against the glass, as if trying to step out. William's heart pounded. He stumbled back, his breath ragged. Then, a whisper echoed in his ear, clearer this time. "You don't belong here, but you can never leave." The hallway lights flickered. The floor beneath his feet felt unstable. He turned to run, but the corridor had stretched endless, shifting, trapping him in its grip. The shadow finally emerged from the mirror. William had nowhere left to run. He bolted toward his room, but with each step, the floor pulled at him, slowing him down. The door to room 306 came into view. Summoning all his strength, he lunged for it, shoved it open, and slammed it shut behind him, his back pressed against the door. He gasped for breath, but something was wrong. The room had changed. Everything looked decayed, aged beyond recognition. The air was thick with mold. The wallpaper was peeling. The dim light flickered erratically. But the worst part, someone was sitting on the bed. Their back was turned. William froze, every nerve in his body screaming to run. Then, a hoarse whisper, "Help me, please. I can't leave." The voice was cracked, as if gravel filled the speaker's throat. William took a step back, his pulse hammering. The figure slowly turned its head, and William felt his mind shatter. It was him, but rotting. His face was pale, his eyes empty, his mouth smeared with blood. His clothes hung in tatters, and his skin was burned, blackened like charcoal. His decayed self stared at him with hollow eyes. William screamed. He spun toward the door, but it was gone. The walls warped, shifting like breathing flesh. The rotting version of himself rose from the bed. "You belong here now," it whispered. Desperate, William searched for an escape. His gaze landed on the room's mirror, but this time, the reflection was different. Someone else stood in his place, and in that moment, horror consumed him. He wasn't in the real world anymore. The hotel had claimed him. William turned to run, but the walls collapsed inward, the ceiling crushing down. The last thing he saw was his own decayed self, reaching for him. And then, darkness. William's eyes flew open. Morning light streamed into the room. He was in bed. Sweat drenched his body. "A nightmare," he whispered. But something felt off. The curtains were missing. The carpet was torn. And worst of all, the mirror. His reflection wasn't mimicking him. It tilted its head. And then, it spoke. "You haven't woken up yet." William screamed, stumbling backward. But then he realized his feet weren't touching the floor. His hands were blurred, like mist. He turned and saw someone sitting on the bed, his own body. The new William opened his eyes, stretched his fingers, then turned to the mirror. He smiled. He stood, walked to the door, and opened it. William pounded on the glass, screaming, but no one heard. Outside, the hotel corridor was calm. The new William approached the front desk. "Good morning," he said. "I'd like to stay another night." The receptionist smiled. "Of course, Mr. William. You've always been here." Outside, the wind rattled an old sign above the entrance. It read, "Mirror Hotel. Welcome to eternal stay."